Long at last, working Sega CD, Model 1. Holy crap, what a nightmare this was. Listen to it, look at it go. It is now 5:12 in the morning. But success, victory is mine! I will go ahead and reset this so you can see how it's working. Look at that, tray all the way out, glides like butter. If you can hear with the headphones, the music playing. Let's see if I can turn that up anymore. Sorry, I had to set the phone down for a second. There we go. A little distorted because it's turned all the way up. But check this out. I'm going to go over here, I'm going to press start on the gamepad. Goes in there, starts spinning, closes the disc tray all the way with no problem. Oh, I have pressed start one more time to start the game. And you hear the Sega chime from the BIOS. Absolutely beautiful. Wow, what a nightmare. This was not a fun repair. I'm going to go ahead and eject this. And then I'm going to turn off the system, but only after it's all the way ejected, because I don't want to get the tray out of alignment. Turn this off. See all my cotton swabs and parts everywhere. Just to tell you all what the final problems were, the final diagnoses, the final rundown of it all. I'm not going to take this tray out again because I don't want to mess with a good thing. But basically, first off, this is for detecting a switch. There's a switch under here. It's a clear piece of plastic with two pieces of copper in it. It's an old style switch. When this touches that, when this tray gets all the way ejected, it touches that, pushes that back, and that says, hey, tray's all the way out. Under this is a black gear. That black gear is the main gear that controls the tray. The track that's under both sides of the tray just goes to a passive roller wheel here. Now, the center screw for this black gear, it's very important that you don't tighten that all the way. That was one of my problems. I tightened it all the way. Well, that screw stays stationary while the gear's turning, so there's friction. If your drive is ejecting in a really weak way and you've already replaced the belt, which was the other problem, one of the other problems, then you will have that issue where it's like not opening or closing all the way if that screw is too tight on this black wheel. So don't do that. The other issue I had is I showed in my other video, there's a vertical guide. There's a vertical guide, circular piece of black plastic that's in there, down in there. It's a cylinder. And that when that black plastic gear moves, it pushes up this tray through that vertical guide. Now that vertical guide, if it gets the tiniest piece of debris in it, you will have problems. That guide needs to be butter smooth because it's taking most of the friction, it's requiring most of the force from the gears and the belt to raise your tray. So if you get a tray that comes in like halfway, but you have to give it that final push, a lot of times it's going to be because of that vertical guide. Now, these issues all work in tandem, so if you have one of them, that doesn't mean you don't have the other. And so again, I'm going to list the three issues. The number one issue, though, is the belt. There is a belt here. It gets stretched out over the years. It just needs to be replaced. You can find replacements everywhere. If you just search Sega CD Model 1 belt replacement, you will find it. So that belt needs to be replaced. Number one thing. If you have one of these, you need to replace that belt. If it hasn't been replaced in 30 years, it's probably already bad. Very, very high possibility. So that's number one. Number two, if you're having problems after that, fix your alignment. Make sure everything's aligned. I found the best way for doing alignment was, there's two ways. Either tray all the way out or tray all the way in. I kind of had mixed results, honestly. If you're going to do tray all the way in, you have to really make sure this black gear, I don't know, it can be tricky. there is a release. There's a flathead release plastic through the PCB, this PCB here, that will let you release this gear, which is really nice and convenient. Make sure you turn it back after you release it. But the way to tell if it's properly aligned, one is it needs to be all the way all the way clockwise to release. And then you put the tray back in. I will say to take the tray out. There's lots of videos on this, but you take out this piece of plastic, very important because that hits the switch. Then you pull on this tab here, this plastic tab, and this plastic tab. Pull those out and nudge the tray out, and then lift it up. You also have to lift it up. There is a vertical notch as well. So it's a 3-stage process every time you want to remove this tray. Keep that in mind. It sucks. And if you're going to do it with the tray, if you're going to do the alignment with the tray out, yeah, make sure you take the whole thing out. Get that gear all the way counterclockwise, or sorry, all the way clockwise. And you'll see the tray will be all the way down, and that's how you know it's time to, this tray will be all the way down, the laser tray. So that's how you know it's time to put the disc tray in. Try not to push it in because it will get out of alignment sometimes when you push it in. You have to very carefully turn these gear teeth. It's not a great way to do it. There is this notch right here that can help you move the gear if it's exposed, but it's not perfect. Yeah, if your gear is screwed in too tight, really watch out for that. Also, I had an issue with my switch that the gear hits as well. If your laser is not going down the guide after your disc tray is closed, like everything's aligned perfectly, but your laser just isn't moving or going down the guide, odds are it's going to be that second switch, not the one that this thing hits, but the ones that the black gear hits. Look at my other videos. I show you where those switches are. There's that second switch there. And if this gear isn't pushing that switch this way with there's a little plastic nub that pushes it, then odds are that's going to be the issue. Unless you have like some weird fried circuit board, that is a very common issue. Now, the other major issue that this had was there was another switch where the laser moves in the guide and it hits that switch, and that lets it know, hey, you're at the end of the guide. Start reading the disc from the beginning. The switch, I show this in my other video, that switch was bad. That switch, when it was hitting it, would only read 114 ohms, or would read 114 ohms, which is much too high. It needs to be like 10, 20 ohms tops probably. Really should be a lot closer to 0, of course. It's just a simple on and on switch, on or off switch. And I had to take out that entire switch, take it apart and clean it. It really sucked. I talk about it in my other video. I explain how to do that. So look out for that issue. But alas, this sucker's working. Also, keep in mind that this cable's long enough here that you can extend it out this way and work on it behind the system. That was really helpful for me to figure out. And also be very careful. There's the inside of the Segasonicfan unit is all aluminum. You want to be really careful not to test it unless it's screwed in to above that aluminum, because you can short out the motherboard. It is exposed. The motherboard is completely exposed under the laser here. Really dangerous design for testing purposes. So do be mindful of that. Again, in summary, the issues I had, one was the switch detect for the laser reaching the end of the guide was bad. 2, the rubber drive belt was bad, needed to be replaced. 3, I had some debris in the vertical guide for this tray that the black gear here turns, that's in the center. And 4, the screw was too tight on this black gear, making it have friction when it was turning. So, and then 5, of course, it was out of alignment. Those are the 5 issues that I had to repair to get this thing going. What a pain. But it works now. I learned a lot along the way. Hopefully you will benefit from my suffering and be able to repair your system a lot easier. As I said in the other videos, go very slow. Do not force anything. This is old plastic. And while you're in here, get some lithium grease, touch up these motor gears, and you should have a player. Well, if as long as your laser's all right, you should have a player that'll be working for quite some time. Let's hope. Vintage electronics, folks. We do it for the Sega love. This is Segasonicfan, signing out.